Have you had your credit card information hacked? Well, 50% of Americans have either had their personal card hacked or their business card hacked. Marnie Ochs-Raleigh of Evolved Systems joins me tonight to tell us how we can fix this mess. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you, Diana. It's my pleasure.
Have you ever had this happen to you personally?
Oh, yes. Both personally and with our business account, as well as having the opportunity to help clients be able to sort through what they need to do to fix the issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, one of the reasons why I contacted you was that this happened to me just about a month ago. I saw on my business account card that somebody had made a charge, and I was able to resolve that with my bank. But when I posted that on Facebook, it just kind of blew up with everybody who also had some of the same things. So you thankfully have put 5 questions together for us to talk about. So what should I do, and we're talking about the personal side of it now, when I see that my credit card number has been stolen?
Oh, first of all, I'm so sorry that it happened to you. There's nothing worse than feeling violated like that. It feels as if somebody just kind of walked into your house and took something that didn't belong to them. So it's unfortunate. If it happens to you personally, the first thing that you really want to do is call your bank, because you need to alert the bank that this has happened so that they can stop any additional transactions from going through. And you do have a time frame of what you need to have as a response time, because otherwise the banks assume that those are your charges. And so you have to be very vigilant about watching that, because sometimes if your credit card number is compromised, they'll do a little test, and they'll do it for like $9.95. And it would come across on your charge statement as a gas station that you may not recognize the name of, but that you might just think, okay, this could be legitimate. I don't remember this. But if you wait too long, then you have all that responsibility as the consumer that money does come out of your account. So by alerting the bank immediately, that gives them the opportunity to be able to stop it, and they can reissue that credit card for you. And then at that point, you can start going through that rigorous process of all of your automatic payments that you have, restructuring all of that. The second thing that you want to do is contact your police department. You want to let them know that there is a violation. And if you don't, then once again, the liability could transfer back over to you. Another thing that people really need to focus in on is monitoring their credit reports. They really should contact the 3 main credit report agencies and just verify whether or not there's other fraudulent charges that they're seeing. We have seen multiple times where somebody will go through and they'll notice that there may be one little ping on a credit card, but it could be a stretch for a larger identity theft situation rather than just a credit card. And of course, go through and change your usernames and passwords of all of your accounts. And you know, at our house, we make sure to do that on a frequent basis, just because you don't know what is available out on the internet. People can find things.
Well, in my particular case, I was able to find it fairly quickly. I think it's quickly, but I was checking on a Friday, and the charge had come in on a Tuesday.
Sure.
And so the weird thing was it had come in on a different state, and I knew I hadn't been in that state for over a year. And so, and then on the bank statement, it had a number. So we actually called that number, and it went to Vermont, so it didn't match up with the other state. Right?
Yep.
And so then the other state, Wisconsin, it was off by 1 number, for the area code. And then I went online to see whether or not that was indeed it looked like a furniture company, but it just came in as the amount. So that's one of the things. When I did call the bank, they said, well, were you hurt? No, credit card's right in front of me. Okay, so it could have been a skimmer or some type of, thing, or somebody just, that I had given my card to a year ago had written it down, perhaps, and just sat on it for a while.
They could have easily. The other thing that we forget about as consumers is we'll go and we'll order pizza, and we'll go up to the counter and they give them the credit card. And some of these kids, they're taking pictures of the credit card numbers, and when you're not looking, they're taking it and flipping it upside down so they can see the authorization code on the back. And if especially like if you've ordered it for a delivery, they know your address, and so therefore they have all of the main components in order to be able to take that credit card number and use it elsewhere.
Yeah, didn't even think about that. But you also say file a complaint with the Federal Trade Commission. I haven't heard about that one.
Yeah, that's when you're starting to get involved with some credit situations that there's a lot of fraud. So unfortunately, not every consumer or business has got their eye on the ball. And so if one starts to go, if one opportunity happens, then the fraudulent folks that are doing this, they're just going to run wild with it. And so there's situations where businesses have had a shopping cart online, and over a weekend, they'll have somebody go through their website and try validating cards. Oh. And what that means is if they've purchased a bank of cards from either Russia or China, that's normally where they come from, they'll start pinging websites to verify whether or not it's an active card or not. And all they need to do is get a decline. So if they're going through and checking, is $1 going to work, is $1 going to work, they're using that information in order to validate a whole block. And then when they go to sell that block, if it's been validated, they can get more money for it.
Wow. Okay, so then question number 2, if I see my credit card number has been stolen, I contact the bank. Now, what are they going to do?
The bank has the responsibility to be able to work specifically with the police if there is any type of local fraud. The problem is that the fraud that happens is normally state to state. And so then you're dealing with different jurisdictions. And so it gets to be a lot more complicated. And if there's transactions that are under certain dollar amounts, they don't have the time to be dealing with it. And when you are contacting the bank, they've got their protocol of what they're supposed to do with the card. And the first thing, of course, is to cancel the account immediately. And then they'll go through and they'll review the previous charges on the account with you to verify whether or not it was fraud or if it was the purchases that you had made.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the bank didn't necessarily do that, but because I had said I hadn't been in that state and that came through, then they allowed some other things to come in. It looks like we already have some questions coming in.
Great.
So Carl, I'm going to go ahead and thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So let's see what we have here. Let's see. So going to recognize this. Thank you, Dawn. As a business, how can you protect your client's information? There you go. Because we're also, so let's move into the business portion of it because we've, kind of did a little bit on the personal, but as a business owner, and that was the thing. This is my business card.
It is your business
and it really
card.
bugged me.
One of the things that I have done and what I recommend to all of our clients when we're setting up their merchant accounts for them is to make sure that you set your security settings as high as possible so that you are matching the AVS or the address verification as well as the zip codes so that if somebody just has one portion of the identity for it, it's going to stop the authorization or that approval from going through. And so as a business, that's one thing that you can do. The other thing that I have done for our business is we do a lot of online purchases, and I think that we all do. I think the different generations are getting very comfortable with ordering office supplies, and Amazon's now delivering immediately, and so we have that exposure of our credit cards being online. And so one of the things that I encourage businesses for their credit cards is to have one card that they specifically are using just for the online purchases, and have credit limits set to where they know what their monthly budget is. So that if somebody does happen to get any of that credit information and they start making these charges, that it's stopped because of a credit high. And it works out really well to be able to manage that. The other thing that businesses can do, just like on a personal card, is set up the alerts. So there's many times that we'll be traveling and we make a purchase in a different state. And the credit card company knows that we're normally just here in Minnesota. If there's something that happens in Vermont, that we'll get a text. And so make sure that you utilize the technology to get those types of alerts as a notification.
Now it's interesting because I know that my bank, I need to notify my bank when I leave the area.
Yes.
But I know American Express, when I called them, they said, it doesn't really matter. You can travel the world with American Express.
Well, American.
So that puts it in a different category.
It certainly does. And Visa, MasterCard is one entity. So obviously they're separate companies, but American Express is they're completely different entity, and they will flow their transactions through the Visa, MasterCard network. And American Express has got the different types of checks and balances, or for what the credit is, for what's set up. And you'd be surprised at the algorithms that these credit card companies have on what our purchases are. are. And so if you're going out and you're normally purchasing this set amount of items, or if they see that you've purchased a plane ticket, then they know that you're going to be traveling. And so they're able to mine that data to be able to provide that protection.
Well, that's what, so I did. So again, lots of questions coming
Yeah,
in now.
yeah.
If you're a small business owner, how much are you liable in the event of theft?
You know, it's if you ship that product out, then you've lost the product. There's no way of getting that product back. There are many opportunities for people when they're purchasing online. And, you know, we talked about this just a little bit ago, where let's just say that I'm purchasing something from your business and I place that order and it's a product. You take that product and you ship it to an address that matches that stolen credit card number, because people can go to mailboxes, or they can piece different puzzles together by using the internet to get all the matching information. So the name, the address, they can get the credit card numbers. And once you ship that product, you can log on to the shipping company, whether it's UPS or FedEx or any of the other couriers, and you can redirect where that's actually going to get delivered. And so as a business owner, it's best to have all of those checks and balances put into place to make sure that those security settings are as high as possible, that you're matching the zip code, the street address, and you can always call. If you've got any type of question, you can take that credit card number and you can call your merchant processor and ask them if they can track that down. You need to have the name of who the card came in from, the full credit card number, and they can start tracking it down, because through the number that's on your card, you're able to then reach out to those resources to see if there's any activity that's been reported.
Another good question, how can businesses save money on processing fees?
That is a very good question, and the processing fees are really dictated by the type of an account that is set up, and it's a very competitive business. Visa, MasterCard sells all of their pricing at what's called interchange, and so you can see what the dollar amounts are, or what their fees are for each type of transaction. There's over 600 pricing categories, and so it's very difficult to be able to really get specific with that. There are certain types of pricing platforms. We specialize in working with B2B transactions. When we have a retail application, that's when you're actually either swiping the credit card or dipping the PIN chip combination. That gives the merchant the highest amount of security, because at that point, Visa, MasterCard is looking at the transaction and they're saying, I'm able to validate not only that they have a PIN number that matches the card, and that they have a signature on the card that I can match with a secondary form of ID, and normally it's a picture ID. So if you're out shopping as a consumer and you have the store owner or whomever you're purchasing from, and they ask you for a copy of your ID, don't be offended. Just be grateful that they're making sure that nobody has stolen your credit card.
Exactly. Well, we've got lots of questions online, but one of the things that I got today from my bank was they're talking now about their security features.
Yes.
And so two-step verification at sign-on.
Yes.
Okay, I get that. Voice verification when calling on my account. I'm not quite sure how that's working, other than they ask me for additional forms of information.
Exactly.
And then number 3, manage alerts when using a password change. I get that all the time. But this last one, and we talked about this earlier off camera, is a new one for me. It's the biometric authentication. So you use fingerprint or facial recognition when using the mobile app. And I have a fingerprint application on my phone, but not everybody has that. I don't have the facial recognition. I mean, I know about it, but I don't have that. And so I wonder how that affects other people who don't have maybe advanced phones, right?
Exactly.
Their cells, right?
Yeah, their cell phone.
Right.
I think that the piece that we as Americans forget is that our technology, as far as biometrics and security, is a little behind of what Europe's been using. And we're one of the last countries to actually switch over our security features from that magnetic strip on the back of the credit card to where we're using the EMV, or where we're having to dip the credit card. The next phase of what we're all going to be working with is specifically that, and the technology is out there. It takes a long time in order for that transaction to change, where, you know, you and I both we were talking about how we have friends that have flip phones.
Right.
How are they going to do that?
Right.
They can't do that.
They can't.
And people are still hesitant about security from the standpoint of how much is too much for somebody to know about me. And
Right.
we have to really, wonder how long it's going to take, but it's there. That security level is there. And it's exciting and frightening at the same time.
Right, exactly. So that's okay. So now we got lots of people. Okay.
Okay.
And then so another one that I saw so what is, well, this is kind of an inside question, but what is level 3 processing?
Level 3 processing. Well, there's in the B2B environment, there's the opportunity for the business transaction to be qualified with an extra 26 data fields that
Wow.
get inserted. And when you're supplying that level of information to match the different transaction pieces, the processors will give you a preference and give you a lower processing rate. And so when we're going through and building websites for clients, we need to make sure that we're allowing them that information that it can be accessed, because if somebody wants to sell a lot of items very quickly and they're not having their clients push information into the system where it's just give me your shipping address and we're going, we're
Right.
letting it run, that's a higher risk for fraud. What level 3 allows you to do is to get that additional data, and it takes time to be able to do it, but by giving that data, by having somebody verify that additional security feature, then they're rewarded by Visa MasterCard with a lower processing rate.
When you have that, though, does it take a little bit longer to kind of go through the system, and maybe that's what you want?
Well, when you take the time to go through and insert that data, that's where the time takes to put that in there. But as far as like processing, no, because everything's automated right now. And it really is just best business practices and how to be able to run those credit cards through.
Well, again, we have lots of people here. Hi, Diana. My wife rocks. Thank you for doing this with her.
I know who that is. That'd be my husband.
That would be your husband. So as a business owner, we've kind of talked about a lot of this stuff, but as a business owner, should I notify the police of a stolen credit card?
Yes, absolutely. It needs to be taken care of. The police will file a report, and they want to have that report available just in case that they're able to tie that fraudulent transaction together with any other crime. And it's amazing how, let's just say that somebody was mugged and they had their purse stolen, and then the credit card comes through as a stolen credit card, and they're using that credit card at a gas station to fill up their tank. Well, the gas station has got the surveillance cameras where they're able to do a recognition of who it was. Things get tied together, and so it may seem minuscule to notify the police, but it really is a good thing just to be able to say, hey, this happened, and this is how I may think that it happened, or I don't know how they got this, but this is what was stolen. They may be able to track a pattern.
Interesting, because again, it was my bank who told me, call the police when we're done here. You call the police and file a report. And so I did, and I got the officer to call me back, and he said, okay. He said, now I've created a case account number, and if your bank needs that, and here it is, and give that to them. Now, turns out we didn't end up doing that because the card was instantly canceled and all the rest of that stuff. But,
very good.
But I thought it was interesting that now that's another paper trail. Maybe that's an old term, but it's another number trail, right?
Right.
For trying to keep everybody accountable in the whole thing.
Yeah, it is exhausting. And one of the things that business owners just to keep in mind is that we all assume that it's not going to happen to us, and that we're not going to experience this, but it happens time and time again. And we keep a separate spreadsheet of all the different automatic payments that go out on our card, whether it's the cell phone companies and the energy and all the different recurring monthly fees, just so that if it does happen and we are violated, that we're able to very quickly contact them and get it taken care of. And I just encourage people when they're traveling, make a copy of what the cards are that you are carrying with you in case you do have some any type of theft that happens, so that you know how to get a hold of that card number to cancel it. Because if you're not canceling it, then they're assuming that it's you.
Right, exactly. Well, thankfully, I have done that one. Now, let's talk about some of the scams. And that's what they were trying to figure out, both the bank and the police department were trying to figure out. So, paying at the pump, using a skimmer, credit card cloning, account takeover.
Yeah, there are so many scams. I think that the one that I've heard a lot of this last spring is the IRS, that for some reason all the employees sound like they're calling from India. And yeah, exactly. So what's happening is people are receiving telephone calls, and they're saying that unless they contact them immediately to resolve the issues that are on their account, that the police are going to be showing up to arrest them. And they're very persuasive. And I received one of the phone calls, and knowing that, you know, since I'm in this industry, and I put it on speakerphone and had everybody come over and listen to what the call to action was that they had. It's very convincing, and people need to understand that anytime that you are feeling pressured or that somebody's putting a time constraint on you, that's normally a really good indication just to not give them personal information. And I know that even with this IRS scam, that they're giving a callback number, because that's one of the first things that people will say, well, give me the telephone number, I'll call you back.
Right.
Well, they're providing this callback number, and you're calling in and getting the same thing.
Sure. Right. Now, was that a recorded call?
No.
No, it was a live person?
It's a live person.
Ooh.
Yeah. So it's very deceiving. It is. And you know, unfortunately, some of our older folks fall for it, because they get intimidated easily, and they want to make sure that everything's right, and because they don't understand how some of the laws work, they're very suspect to falling to it.
Well, here's one I haven't heard of: a Code 10 authorization request.
Yes. That is a really important thing for business owners to educate their staff with. And what happens is you may have somebody that would come into the business, and if you suspect that it's a stolen credit card, what you can do is step around the corner. I mean, obviously you don't want to call in front of somebody, or if you have to, that's why it's called Code 10. You call the credit card number or the company. So you have the card in front of you, and they have the customer support number. And you want to train your staff to be able to say, there's something wrong with our machine. Let me just make a quick telephone call to see if I'm able to access this. So what happens is you're calling this number and you say, I have a Code 10. And what a Code 10 means is it's the alert system that you feel as though there could be a thief standing in front of you. What will happen is the credit card company will automatically call the police, and they can dispatch the police to come to the location, because if they suspect that there's somebody there, they're going to make sure to want to grab any information that they can get from that person. The next thing that they're going to do is start trying to get the information on the sale. They want to get the address. They want to say, you know, verify the information. And so they'll keep them on the phone, and they're able to verify whether or not, yes, this was a stolen credit card number, or no, I think you should be fine. And so it gives the business owner the opportunity to verify something immediately.
Yeah, that's why I tell you what, because if you're standing there and you have a small staff, you know, that's so important.
What do you
to
do?
have that. Yeah, exactly.
You know, safety is always first. You always have to, you know, your staff has to be safe. You have to remind them that if you're feeling unsafe, you know, a $100 transaction is not worth somebody's safety.
Exactly. One of the other things that you have, you know, talked about, or you gave me the information for, is scamadvisor.com or ripoff reports. Is that one and the same? But I thought that was kind of interesting. And by the way, we're going to post all of this information tomorrow online on What's Next with Diana Pierce on Facebook. So a lot of the stuff that we've already gone over tonight, that will be there. Of course, our informational interview here will also be online as well. But if you're a person that likes to read, we're going to have all of this stuff. So scamadvisor.com, what's that all about?
You know, if you've got any questions when you're shopping online, and you've got you're questioning whether or not the website that you'd want to be purchasing something from is legitimate, because we've talked about the theft, but we haven't even scratched the surface on how we'll have unscrupulous people that will put together a website to sell miscellaneous items, and they don't have any of the items, they don't even stock that. But what they'll do is they'll just get your credit card number, and your payment or your shipment will never arrive. And so you can visit that website and put in the URL or the www. Whatever website is that you're looking at, and if there's been any other complaints about that website, it will show up on that site. And it also gives them the alert to spend a little bit of investigative time just to see if it's a legitimate business or not.
Yeah, these have been great tips. I really appreciate you coming this evening. Thank you, Marnie.
Thank you, Diana.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Again, for more information, just head to Evolve's website. We're going to put that information on lower thirds here. But and more tips, again, will be posted on What's Next with Diana Pierce. And then we're also doing this on LinkedIn and then, of course, on YouTube. So thank you so much for joining me. And good night,
Thank you.
everybody. We'll see you back here next week.
Perfect.